Hollywood loves a perfect ending. Soft music, white flowers, a quiet goodbye. But behind those polished funerals, there is often something far darker. Because when a legend dies, the spotlight doesn't disappear, it shifts. And sometimes that spotlight exposes something ugly: family hatred, hidden resentment, and long-buried secrets exploding at the worst possible moment. These are not peaceful farewells. These are battles. And today, we reveal 6 Hollywood funerals that were quietly, and sometimes shockingly, sabotaged from within. The first story begins with the tragic legacy of Whitney Houston, but the real chaos came after her death, during the funeral of her daughter, Bobby Christina Brown. What should have been a quiet, emotional goodbye quickly turned into a public family war. Inside the church, tensions between the Houston family and the Brown family exploded. One relative even stormed out in anger, openly accusing others of disrespecting Whitney's memory. Imagine that moment, a funeral filled with grief, suddenly turning into a battlefield of shouting, blame, and unresolved pain. And here's the deeper truth. This wasn't just about grief, it was about money, control, and legacy. Bobby Christina was the sole heir to Whitney Houston's estate. Millions were involved, and when money enters mourning, peace often disappears. Now let's go back to old Hollywood, to one of the most iconic stars ever, Marilyn Monroe. Her funeral looked small and private. Only a few people were invited. But what many don't know is that this wasn't about respect, it was about control. Her ex-husband, Joe DiMaggio, took charge of everything, and he made a shocking decision. He banned almost all of Hollywood from attending. No studio executives, no famous co-stars, no powerful insiders. Why? Because he blamed Hollywood for her suffering and death. This wasn't just a funeral, it was a silent act of revenge, a way to punish the industry that, in his eyes, destroyed her. Even in death, Marilyn's farewell became a reflection of bitterness, not unity. Then comes the shocking case of Nicole Smith, a funeral surrounded by chaos, lawsuits, and a disturbing fight over her body. After her sudden death, her own family and her partner became locked in a legal war. The question wasn't just where to bury her, but who had the right to decide. Courtrooms replaced mourning halls, lawyers replaced family members. At one point, her body remained unburied as the fight dragged on. Think about that. A woman who lived in the spotlight, reduced to a legal dispute after death. And when she was finally buried, it wasn't a peaceful resolution. It was the result of a bitter emotional victory in court. This is what happens when love is replaced by control. Next, we uncover the haunting farewell of George Michael. His funeral was meant to be private, quiet, respectful, but even there, tensions slipped through the cracks. Reports revealed that people close to him were excluded, ignored, or deliberately left out of key moments. One of his former partners arrived late, while others refused to even speak to him. There were no loud fights, no public scenes, but sometimes silence is even louder than shouting. Because behind closed doors, the message was clear: you don't belong here. And that kind of emotional exclusion can be just as cruel as any argument. Now we move to a darker, almost disturbing case involving Tupac Shakur. His death shocked the world, but what happened after shocked people even more. There was no traditional funeral, no formal goodbye. Instead, members of his close circle reportedly cremated his body and then did something unthinkable. They mixed his ashes with substances and consumed them as part of a ritual. Some saw it as loyalty, others saw it as disrespect. But here's the mystery. Was this what Tupac would have wanted, or was this a decision driven by emotion, chaos, and lack of agreement among those closest to him? When there is no unity, even the final farewell becomes uncertain. Now, let's step into a story that feels almost unbelievable, involving the legendary Frank Sinatra. His funeral was elegant, private, carefully controlled, but behind that perfection was a strict barrier. Fans were kept far away, and even media access was tightly restricted. At first, it seemed like dignity, but insiders later suggested something deeper. Family members wanted control over his image, his legacy, and most importantly, his estate. Because when someone like Sinatra dies, the value of their name doesn't disappear, it grows, and controlling that legacy becomes a silent war. The funeral wasn't just about saying goodbye, it was about protecting power. Finally, we return to a truth that connects all these stories. Funerals are supposed to be about closure, about respect, about love. But in Hollywood, they often become something else entirely. Because behind the fame, behind the millions, behind the perfect public image, there are families, broken relationships, old arguments, hidden jealousy. And when a star dies, those emotions don't disappear. They rise, stronger than ever. Experts say funerals are one of the most emotional moments in any person's life. Grief can reopen old wounds, revive past conflicts, and bring buried resentment back to the surface. Now imagine adding millions of dollars, global fame, and media attention to that situation. It's no longer just a funeral. It's pressure, it's exposure, it's conflict waiting to happen. And that's why these 6 stories matter, because they reveal something Hollywood doesn't want you to see. The truth behind the flowers, the truth behind the tears, the truth behind the perfectly staged goodbye. In the end, the biggest mystery isn't how these stars lived, it's what happened after they died. Who controlled their legacy? Who made the final decisions? And who was left out in silence? Because sometimes, the real drama doesn't happen on screen, it happens at the funeral.